Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're taking a look at Kong, an original screenplay by Edgar Wallace, and this is edited by Stephen Jones, and this is a look at Wallace's early career, how he got to writing the Kong screenplay, and then how it got eventually taken to screen. It's a fantastic book, beautifully illustrated, and that's what we're going to be having a look at today. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. So first of all then, the actual design of the book. So it's got this really attractive dust jacket here, and the artwork was by Bob Eggleton. And there we are. And then he's done these illustrated boards as well. And I will actually flick through the book without the dust wrapper on, because it's just a little bit easier. As you can see, it's really great, bold, vivid. You know what you're going to get. And as I said, this is published as part of Stephen Jones's Master of Horror series. It's one of the, looks like the French movie poster for the King Kong movie. Here we are, there's Edgar Wallace there. And there's the list of all the illustrators, and then, yeah, Stephen Jones was the overall editor, and it's part of his Masters of Horror series, this particular one. So yeah, it's beautifully laid out. If I just flick through, you've got an idea of what's coming out. You can see plenty of illustrations in here as well. And it just sort of feels really nice to hold. It's like the perfect size for this sort of a book, and very well designed. It's great. It's a real treat, this, and they've really sort of thought about the subject matter, and it's appropriately laid out, shall we say. So I mean, I'm not going to go through every single page because there's a lot to look at here, but basically the book opens up with a little bit about Stephen Jones, and then Edgar Wallace, and how he started his career as a writer. He was a reporter for many years, and he reported in South Africa before moving back to England, and he worked for the Daily Mail, and eventually he formed his own publishing imprint, which was the Tallis Press, and here he basically reprinted a lot of his columns from the Daily Mail, and the first one actually sold about 30,000 copies. So he thought, writing was the way to go, being a published author was the way to go, and he wrote his first book, which was The Four Just Men, which is really famous. And it's funny reading about Wallace. He was an author I just dismissed as being quite old-fashioned, and it's true, the books are 90 years old now, but at the same time, reading about them in here and seeing where the influences for the stories came from, it's actually made me want to go back and possibly check out some of my old Edgar Wallace books, and loads of them were reprinted by Pan, and Digit published quite a few as well. So although successful, it was a bestseller, because Wallace gave a bit of a promotion with the first book, The Four Just Men. He ended up losing money, and he was a bit of a gambler as well. So throughout his career, he was always sort of paying back debts, which wasn't exactly great. But he was incredibly prolific with his books, and he was managing to have a massive output. But he always sort of wanted to get into the emerging world of like radios, and then eventually, of course, the movies. So off to Hollywood he went, but in that sort of environment, his unhealthy lifestyle, he was quite a heavy smoker, drinker, liked to entertain, and I said he was a bit of a gambler as well. Didn't really help, and that started to pay a bit of a toll on his life, and eventually there he was. He died, and he was quite young. He was about 57, something like that. Quite a young man when he actually died, after having published, it says there, 170 novels, 18 stage plays, and almost 1,000 short stories. But in this final couple of years of his life, he was in Hollywood. He wrote the original draft for Kong, as it wasn't called King Kong, just called Kong, and the seeds were set. But it then came to other writers to sort of polish that screenplay and bring the movie to life, and that's how the first sort of quarter of the book sort of focuses on. It's on Edgar Wallace's earlier career. So whilst the script was being written, some of the key players who would bring Kong to screen, like the stop motion animator, for example, were sort of learning their craft really, and it was Harold O'Brien who actually created that process, and he worked doing animations of dinosaurs for Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World, which was also on RKO, and that sort of prompted them to sort of go ahead with the Kong concept. But yeah, once Wallace had died, there was a flurry of rewrites. Most of it eventually fell to a woman called Ruth Rose, and it was her script, and she was actually on set when they were filming the movie that was mainly used. But by then, virtually all traces of Wallace's original screenplay had pretty much gone. Now, this next section of the book here focuses on the actual bringing of the movie to life, and this is one where David Selznick, the producer, and Marion Cooper look over concept drawings for Kong. You can see some of the famous scenes there that would come to pass in the movie, with Kong on top of the Empire State Building fighting off the biplanes there, and two of the main cast there, famously Fay Wray, almost, you got to say it's her most famous movie, and Bruce Cabot. Didn't realise she lived so long. I think she was about 90 when she eventually passed away in 2004. She's great in it, really, really well cast. And then there's a few photos of behind the scenes, and there's some really fascinating bits of trivia about how bits of the set were reused as well. The great wall that Kong bangs on and bursts through towards the end of the film was used countless times before it was eventually burnt down in, I believe it was Gone with the Wind was the final time we saw it. There's the main cast and crew there as well. That's good stuff. And because the movie was such an event, really, it did inspire lots of sort of related merchandise. Here's like a look at it, like a King Kong comic strip here. There's lots of great publicity as well. And even though Edgar Wallace had passed away, and really he wasn't that involved with the final finished movie, because he was such a big name and his books were still selling hundreds of thousands of copies a year, they didn't want to not include his name, and he does get a screen credit as well, which is good. And here we are, some of the pre-publicity stuff here. It was right around the world as well, and including in the British Boys' Own papers as well. Movie. And that's just some of the related memorabilia here. Just loads of it. Absolutely loads of it. Lots of magazines sort of speculated how Kong was brought to life. A lot of them thought it was just a man in a suit, but that obviously wasn't the case. It was all stop motion. So that's sort of the second part of the book. Then we have Wallace's script, and how it did get changed. There's obviously aspects that were in the original script which weren't there. There's various different editions of the original script that have been changing hands at auction, and they're sort of movie artifacts these days. And quite rightly, we do get to see the script in its entirety. And this is the most comprehensive one that we believe is in existence. So there it is, the original shooting script. So we'll just fly through that, but there are some more lovely illustrations here. And Kong manages to, he fights the T-Rex, he fights the snake, he fights a pterodactyl, and then the biplanes at the end. Absolutely fantastic, really. And I gotta admit, as soon as I finished the book, I had to go and watch the movie, and I was really, really impressed with it, considering when it was made. It's 90 years old now. I mean, absolutely fantastic, and I really enjoyed rewatching it. Probably the first time I've seen it in 2 decades, and there's a beautiful high definition 1080p copy of it now, and that's the one I watched, and it was great stuff. Here we are. So that's the end of Wallace's original script. Then we got this little colour section here, and Stevens pulled together all these beautiful, some of them massive, and priceless original movie posters for Kong, right from around the world. 6 sheets, 1 sheets, A sheets is fantastic, and these are very, very expensive. You could say some of them are almost iconic. They're great, aren't they? Absolutely fantastic. I love that one there. They're very much of their time, aren't they? They're gorgeous. This really does round out the book very, very nicely. There was a Kong jigsaw puzzle. That was an American one. I'm certain quite recently I saw one at the Museum of Brands in London. If I can get a screen grab of that one, I will, because I'm sure I saw a British King Kong jigsaw puzzle as well, which was done at the time of the film. But yeah, as I said, lovely little colour section here as well, which is well worth spending some time looking at. And then this here is from the Boys magazine. It had a King Kong cover, and they did like a summary of the movie in quite short chapters. Yes, from Boys magazine. It's in the UK, so it's got tuppence there, and this is reprinted in its entirety with the introduction from the editor, "My dear chums," and then here we are. And this is basically like a little adaptation, almost like a summary of it. The book did get adapted, actually. It did have a movie tie-in edition. Not something that was new in the 30s, even some of the silent movies. In fact, I've got one myself of a Harold Lloyd film. Did get a movie adaptation, although I haven't got the one for King Kong. It's certainly going to be on my radar now. I'd love to get that. But there we are. What a book now. There's like the very limited screen credits. They weren't very long at all, just a couple at the start and a couple at the end of the movie. It's funny, the copy I saw was had the interlude, so it's like it was like an introduction, like 10 minutes of just music before it started, which was really like authentic. There's a little bit more about Stephen Jones there, and then there's the series of his Masters of Horror series, which is really great. I recently read number 12 as well, which was the new supernatural stories by Lionel and Patricia Fanthorpe. And this is Kong, and then I see his next one is on none other than Robert Silverberg, so I shall look forward to taking a look at that as well. And there we are, then the gorgeous end papers. What a book this is. So if you're at all interested in 1930s movies, horror movies, or just how the movies of that period were just brought to the screen, I think you'll find this one absolutely fascinating, and it comes highly recommended. Many thanks to the publishers for sending me a copy of this one, and I'll put links if you'd like to pick up a copy yourself from an online bookseller in the description down below. Thanks very much for watching today. I do hope you've enjoyed that one. If you have, do please give it the thumbs up. Do please hit that subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage paperback content, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.